Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, this is Jessica Chotan, and I am speaking with
Susan Henderson.
And this is Syosset Library, and we are going to turn the page. Thank you so much, Susan, for coming. Now, tonight is actually a very big night for us here in Syosset. This is our Reader Services wrap-up party, which is always a lot of fun. We get a lot of awesome donations for prizes, and everyone, the adults, this is for the Adult Reading Club, which has been a huge boon lately for us. A while back, we started having adult summer reading, which, in the past, it was kind of more geared towards children, which is great, but adults read too.
Yes, and I had the pleasure of walking through the room with all the prizes in it, and it's pretty spectacular.
Thank you. We have a really generous community that, supports and donates to this event. It's cool because, adults do read, but I like the fact that the Reader Services, they kind of gamify the system, if you will. They give incentives, and it's not just for kids. You kind of like to feel like, hey, I finished this book, and
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I love that you have it for kids and adults. I think that's so great.
All across the board.
Yes.
So, really quickly, so you are an author.
Mm-hmm.
Your most recent book?
My most recent book is called The Flicker of Old Dreams, which is about the death of small-town America as told by a mortician.
Oh, wow. That's actually a really interesting topic.
Yeah, it was my way of kind of writing about what's happening these days between kind of this idea that there's two Americas.
Right.
I wanted to put my finger on why we lost empathy for each other, but I wanted to write something that was not political.
Right.
So I ended up writing about a small dying town, and in this book there are people that fear change, and there are people that are desperately desiring change, and they're in conflict.
That sounds really interesting.
Thank you.
So I just have a few questions written up by one of our wonderful Reader Services librarians, Stacy Mencher, who sometimes co-hosts with me. What made you want to be a writer?
My first love, and I still my still biggest love is the music of words.
Oh.
And so when I was little, before I knew even what the words meant, I loved listening. I'd sit on my parents' lap and I would listen to poems, A Child's Garden of Verses, or Hop on Pop.
Hop on Pop. That's always a good one, unless children take it literally.
Yes, true. And the Tweedle Beetle Battle, like all
right.
those. And I loved the Mother Goose rhymes, even though I had no idea what they were about. And then when I thought about them for very long, I was like, wow, that's pretty spooky.
Yeah,
But I just love the sound, and so I think when I write, even though I'm very careful about plot and all those things, but in the end, I love the music of the sentences.
That's actually a really beautiful way of putting it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe it that way, but that's very nice. I have to ask. I'm actually a big fan of nonsense verse.
Oh.
And I like the Jabberwocky poem by Lewis Carroll, and a lot of the wordplay in Alice in Wonderland, I always felt to be very lyrical.
Yeah.
To the point that I guess it became, it inspired a lot of lyrics, especially in the 60s.
Yeah, when I was growing up, my mom used to listen to a lot of Betty Carter. She was somebody who played with Ray Charles a lot, and she would just be scatting, and I just loved the scatting. You know? And so I love the writers that their words are so good that I have to read them out loud, or it sounds like scatting almost.
That's cool. So what is your writing process like?
It's weird. My main process is I can't actually think and sit at the same time. So I do 100% of my writing while walking.
Oh, do you listen to music while you do it?
No, I bring my phone, and I have an app called Audio Memos app, and I walk usually with a question in mind. I'll have these are two people I want to have in the scene, and I want them to fight over such and such, and I have no idea. And I'll just start walking, and I'll pet all the dogs in the neighborhood, and I'll smell the flowers. And my only rule is I'm not allowed to go home until I have an answer to my question. So sometimes it's a half-hour walk, and sometimes it's like a 3.5-hour walk.
That sounds like not only a very good way to write, but also a good way to get to exercise.
Yeah, it keeps me from being a hermit, too. I have to edit sitting on my butt, but sitting on my couch.
Yeah.
Edit that out. But I do think better when I'm walking.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's something that happens. There's a process when you do exercise, and it gets different things moving for different people.
Right.
But I've never heard of anybody who writes while walking. That's amazing. Who?
Percy Shelley.
Oh.
And Walt Whitman. They were both,
really. And Walt Whitman is immortalized in one of our local schools. We have a Walt Whitman Elementary here, and then of course there's the Walt Whitman Mall out in Huntington, but we have Walt Whitman Elementary.
Yeah, and it was harder in their day because they didn't have the voice memo app. They had to actually, I guess, either write while walking or or just remember it.
He was a school teacher, I believe, on Long Island, Walt Whitman, actually. I think he taught around here. But that's an interesting local tidbit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. If I had to pick one, ask me tomorrow and it'll be different. If I had to pick one, it would be Beloved by Toni Morrison.
Oh, that's a really good one.
If I had to pick three.
Pick three.
I would say We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson.
See, and I love that book. It is so...
Love it.
It's so
Mary Katz
spooky.
Is my favorite
she was very interesting.
I love her.
And you want to talk about an unreliable narrator. You don't even know what's going on until it hits you. It was so good. Shirley Jackson writes some really good suspense horror, but it's not...
It's a wicked character.
It is. It's great. And it's not like horror as in, there's nothing like no gore. It's very cerebral. I love it.
Yeah, my kids have all read it. I'm like, you gotta read this book.
So what else?
I would say my favorite writer is James Baldwin, and it's hard to pick one, but I would probably pick Giovanni's Room as my favorite.
Very nice. So do you have a favorite book of those that you've written? A favorite book of your own that you've written?
My obsession is always the one that I'm working on, so it's the one I haven't written yet, but the one I'm kind of toying around with. But my first book was much closer to memoir, and I feel like I needed to write that one. And all the other stories I had to write were kind of jammed behind that until I wrote that. And then this one was me just kind of processing the rage and division in America, and so I needed to write that.
Right.
And then the one that I'm working on now is going to be set in the town I live in, which is Kings Park.
Oh, I love Kings Park.
Yes, it's going to be set in the abandoned
now that is a place where I have taken the wrong exit off of is it the Sagdacoast? I'm trying to remember, and I've ended up at night.
Yes.
driving by the abandoned. Yeah, and it's
the wonderful thing about
quite imposing.
Is if you look at it at night, you'll see all the flashlights of all the teenagers that are in there exploring at night. So I was just like, I've got to write about this place.
Oh,
right
wow. I'm definitely reading that book when it comes out.
Later, so be patient.
No, that's fine. Take a few walks. You'll get around to it. Which book took the longest to write?
The first book took 6 years.
Wow.
The second one took 5 years, but So the Flicker of Old Dreams, I was 3 years and 54 chapters in when I decided it wasn't working, so I threw the whole thing away and started over.
Okay.
So if I only count when I start over, it was really fast. It only took like 6 months to write it. But I think I needed that all that stuff that I threw away ended up being important to the process.
No, that's good. I think you do learn a lot from what's left on the cutting room floor, so to speak. And what inspires you to write? How do you determine what to write?
So if it takes me about 5 years to write a book, it has to be something that I'm so obsessed and passionate about. And the most important thing when I'm writing is I don't want to know what I already know, and I don't want to know what I already think. I'm usually writing to figure out what I think.
Right.
And I'm usually writing, my goal as I'm writing whatever topic I pick is I like to look at the places we're broken as people or splintered as a community, and I like to just give it a hard look and then see, is there any way to open up a dialogue?
Right.
You know, is there any source of light or healing that's possible in there? And that, I'm usually writing to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. I am pleased that you are going to soon be introduced as our guest speaker at this wrap-up event, and thank you once again. I am going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.